My family tried to destroy me, but I turned the tables. That day, I was in my office, closing a contract I dreamed of signing my whole life. A big project, the kind that changes the course of your career. I was truly happy. Then the phone rang, and I saw my brother's name on the screen. We hadn't spoken in years. My body froze. I considered ignoring it, but I answered. He said directly, "Mariana, we need to talk. It's about Mom and Dad." Just hearing those words, I felt that old weight on my chest, as if everything from the past had come back at once. He started saying that our parents were sorry, that they wanted to see me, that what's done is done. I remained silent, letting him talk, but deep down I already knew it wasn't about regret. It was about them needing something. It had always been that way. Whenever they came after me, it was because they had an interest. And the worst part was that my brothers spoke as if nothing had happened, as if they hadn't cut me out of their lives, as if they hadn't made me change my name so as not to tarnish the family name. I remember squeezing the pen so hard in my hand that the tip broke. He said the company wasn't doing well, that they were going through difficulties. The same company they humiliated me for not wanting to work for. The company that was more important to them than their own daughter. I almost laughed nervously. I felt anger, but it wasn't as burning as before. It was the cold anger of someone who understands. They owe no one anything. When he said they've changed, I lost my patience. I replied that they hadn't changed, they just lost their strength. True regret doesn't come when you need it. It comes when you realize what you've done and try to make amends without expecting anything in return. He was silent for a few seconds, then tried to appeal to my emotions. They're getting old, Mari. There's not much time. And that's when I felt a lump in my throat. But it wasn't from longing. It was from remembering how many nights I cried alone because of them. I could have hung up right then and there, but I stayed. Maybe part of me wanted to hear how far he would go. And he went far. He said the family's image was at stake, that my success could help clean it up. That made me nearly explode. That was it. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about family. It was about the damn image. It always had been. And at that moment, I decided I wasn't going to put up with this theatrics anymore. I told him, in the strongest voice I could muster, that I wasn't going to participate in anything. Let them take care of their own mess. I wasn't going to burn myself to save people who'd thrown me into the deep end. I felt my palms sweat, my heart race, but it was as if every word I spoke lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. He called me ungrateful. I laughed. Yes, I laughed. Because the irony was enormous. Ungrateful for not helping someone who treated me like trash. After I hung up, I sat staring at the wall. My body trembled. It wasn't fear. It was liberation. It was like I'd spent years with a chain around my neck and had finally snapped. I knew there would be consequences because they weren't the type to take no for an answer. But I wasn't going to back down. Not this time. 2 hours later, my phone exploded with messages. First from my brother, cursing me. Then from a number I didn't recognize. It was my sister-in-law, Isabella. She wrote me something that changed everything. "You don't know half of what he does. It's time for the world to know." I was in shock. I didn't understand at first, but she started sending screenshots, audio messages, evidence, harsh stuff, things that exposed the darkest side of my family. Reading that was a mixture of disgust and confirmation. I'd always known there was abuse there, but seeing it all exposed was a whole other level. She told me that Felipe wasn't just the obedient darling, he was also violent, that my parents covered it up, that there were people at the company who suffered in silence. I felt bad for thinking I was the only one who had been destroyed by them. No, there were many others. And I realized that, unintentionally, my refusal could be the beginning of the end for them. I asked Isabella what she was going to do. She replied, "I'm not going to protect anyone anymore. I'm going to expose them." And in that moment, I knew everything was going to change. It wasn't about me forgiving or not. It was about ending a cycle of violence and abuse that had been going on for years, and I was ready to watch from afar as their castle crumbled. That day, when the news began circulating online, I was home alone. I opened the news and saw my family's name plastered across all the accusations. It was strange. I thought I would feel revenge, but what I felt was peace. As if, finally, the truth had found its way, without me having to get dirty for it to happen. I stayed up all night, reading every comment, every testimony from people who had worked with them and confirmed what Isabella had said. It was like watching a documentary about one's own life, but narrated by other voices. And I understood that my decision to say no on that phone call was the trigger. I felt strong, not because they were falling, but because I was standing. The next day, my phone rang nonstop. People I hadn't seen in years were trying to understand my side. It was funny how, when the truth comes out, everyone wants to appear to be on their side. But I hadn't forgotten who had kept quiet before. I didn't need support now. I'd already survived without it. I went to work as usual. I arrived at the office and my colleagues looked at me as if I had done something heroic. But I didn't feel like a hero. I had simply refused to continue being used. And that for me was victory enough. That day showed me that cutting ties isn't cruelty, it's survival. That saying no can change not only your life, but the lives of many. Others who are also trapped in the same cycle. And that sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is not return to the table where you were once served poison as if it were dinner. I didn't reconcile. I didn't visit. I didn't respond to any more messages. My no remained no. And with each passing day, I feel lighter. Because now I know I owe nothing to those who tried to erase me from their own history. In the following days, the company's downfall was rapid. It was as if everyone was just waiting for someone to open the door for the truth to come out. Suppliers canceled contracts, employees started telling old stories, longtime clients ended business. I didn't have to lift a finger. It was like watching a wall crack until it collapsed. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty, because the responsibility wasn't mine. It was theirs. My mom texted me after a long time. Just one sentence. "You destroyed our family." I read it and stared at the screen for a while. I deleted it without responding. Not because it hurt, but because I knew it was a lie. They destroyed themselves. I just didn't agree to participate in the show. And deep down, I think she knew that too. My father never sought me out. I heard from others that he was ashamed. I don't know if it was shame for me or for having been exposed, but it didn't matter. I'd spent so much of my life trying to get a look of approval from him, and in that moment I realized I no longer needed it. That search was over, and along with it, the emotional dependence that had held me captive. Felipe tried to defend himself publicly, but each time he spoke, more evidence surfaced. Isabella stood firm. She didn't back down. I admired her courage because I know what it's like to face that family head-on. She told me that my no on that phone call was the push she needed to stay silent. It touched me in a way I didn't expect. I always thought my fight was my own. It wasn't. What no one sees in these stories is the silence after the storm. When everything was exposed and the news began to fade, I felt an emptiness. It wasn't sadness, but a deep exhaustion, as if I'd been carrying a huge boulder for years, and suddenly it was gone. I had to relearn how to live without the weight. It seems strange, but freedom is also frightening. One day I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about them once the day before. It may seem small, but for me it was huge. It was a sign that they no longer had power over my mind, that my day could exist without a shadow. It was that day I realized it wasn't just survival, I was truly living. I started allowing myself to do things I hadn't done before out of fear of what people would think. Traveling, going to parties, even posting photos without worrying about family members seeing them. Small things, but for me, they symbolized that I had finally taken control of my own life, and best of all, without apologizing. Of course, I still have scars. Some memories come back. Some days I feel angry. Some moments I remember the daughter who just wanted to be loved and accepted. But now, I look at this version of myself, and I feel proud. Because she survived something many people don't. And she did it alone. Many people ask me if I would go back, if I would accept a reconciliation if they changed. The answer is no. Not because I hate them, but because I've learned that some things can't be repaired. It's not about resentment. It's about preserving what I've built within myself. I won't put myself back in a place where my life is worth less than someone else's image. After that day, I also started talking about it more. Not just about family details, but about boundaries, about saying no, about cutting ties. It's amazing how so many people carry similar stories, but live thinking they have to swallow them to keep the family together. I always say, it's not worth sacrificing yourself to sustain a family name. I saw firsthand how status and Tradition can be more important than love for those who choose to live this way. But I also saw that the truth always finds a way to emerge, even if it takes time. And that silence can be complicit, but the first voice that speaks out changes everything. Today, when I think about that phone call, I smile, because I know that was the exact moment I chose my peace over any legacy. I didn't imagine it would be the beginning of the end for them, but I knew it would be the start of a new path for me. I don't wish anyone ill, but I also no longer feel the obligation to wish them well. I just move on. Moving on, for me, is the greatest act of freedom. And every day I wake up and move on is a victory. If anyone reading this is going through something similar, I want you to know. Saying no may hurt at first, but it's the only way to stop the bleeding inside. And when you stop, you start to truly live. I'm proof of that.